For over a decade, we watched them build a life, or rather, what we thought was a life. We tuned in every Sunday to witness the trials and tribulations of the Brown family, a sprawling polygamous clan navigating a world that didn't understand them. We were sold a narrative of shared sacrifice, of a family pot, where every dollar was pooled for the greater good, and of a sisterhood bound by a covenant deeper than marriage. But it was a lie. While the cameras rolled, a secret was festering, a conspiracy so audacious, so diabolically simple, it was hidden right under our noses. This isn't just a story about a family falling apart. This is the story of a multi-million-dollar betrayal, a financial heist orchestrated from the inside by the very patriarch who swore to protect them and the one wife who claimed she wanted to save them. This investigation will change the way you see this family forever. What you are about to hear is the result of months of investigation, a deep dive into insider reports, leaked financial documents, explosive on-air confessions, and exclusive legal theories that piece together a puzzle of systematic deception. Today, we unravel the story of how Kody and Robyn Brown allegedly engineered a corporate shell game to divert millions of dollars of family income into their own private company, gaslighting the other wives into believing the family was broke, while they secretly built a life of luxury on the backs of the women and children they claimed to love. We will expose the villains, and we will champion the victims who fought back. This is the story of the Brown family financial conspiracy, and it is so much worse than you think. Before we dive into the dark and twisted money trail, you know what to do. If you believe these hidden stories need to be brought into the light, hit that like button, make sure you are subscribed, and ring that notification bell, because this is a multi-layered saga, and you are not going to want to miss a single update as we expose every last lie. Your support is what makes these deep dives possible. Now let's get into it. To understand the depth of the betrayal, we have to go back to the beginning, before the fame, before the network money, before the sprawling cul-de-sac in Las Vegas, and certainly before the forested kingdom of Coyote Pass. We have to go back to the foundational principle upon which the Brown family sold their entire existence to the world, the family pot. In countless early interviews and in the pages of their own book, Becoming Sister Wives, the Browns painted a picture of absolute financial unity. The doctrine was simple and on the surface admirable. Kody and his three original wives, Mary, Janelle, and Christine, believed in a celestial law that demanded collectivism. All income from every source went into one single bank account, the family pot. So how does the money work? Who pays for what? Kody, it's simple. It all goes into one pot. All the money we make goes into one pot, and we all draw from it for our needs. We are one family. Janelle, I was the primary breadwinner for a long time. My paycheck went right in. Mary worked. Her paycheck went in. We didn't have my money or her money. It was just the family's money. And in those early days, the system appeared to work. Janelle, with her sharp mind for numbers and a stable career, was a financial engine for the family. Mary, the first wife, contributed her income. Christine, who was primarily raising the rapidly growing legion of children, managed the household budget with what little they had, stretching every dollar. They were a team, bound by faith and a shared dream of building a life together. Sources close to the family in that era, people who knew them before the TLC cameras turned their lives into a global spectacle, emphasized that the idea of one wife or Kody secretly siphoning funds would have been utterly unthinkable back then. The trust was absolute. They were all in it together, struggling together, building together. Their first taste of real success came, of course, with the premiere of Sister Wives in 2010. Suddenly, the family pot wasn't just being filled by regular paychecks, it was being flooded with television money. This influx of cash allowed them to escape potential prosecution in Utah and set up 4 beautiful neighboring homes in a Las Vegas cul-de-sac. For a moment, it was the plural dream realized. Each wife had her own domain, her own home, yet they were connected. The kids ran freely between houses, the family pot was full, and the system, this grand experiment in communal living, seemed to be a resounding success. They were a brand. They were a unit. They were, in their own words, one family. But a 4th wife was about to enter the picture, and with her the first seeds of a conspiracy that would eventually burn the entire illusion to the ground. She would arrive preaching the gospel of sisterhood, all while, sources allege, secretly planning to dismantle it from the inside out, piece by piece. dollar by dollar. The family pot was about to be raided. They just didn't know it yet. Every great conspiracy has a pivot point, a moment where the trajectory shifts, where the seeds of deception find fertile ground to grow. For the Brown family, that pivot point wasn't just a person, it was a place. It was the disastrous, financially catastrophic, and emotionally devastating move to Flagstaff, Arizona. But first, let's talk about the catalyst, Robyn Sullivan, soon to be Robyn Brown. When she entered the family in 2010, she came with 3 children from a previous marriage and, according to her own accounts, a mountain of debt. The family, true to their all-for-one principle, absorbed it. They welcomed her children as their own and her debts as their collective responsibility. However, from the very beginning, the dynamic was different. Kody's relationship with Robyn was not like his relationships with the other wives. It was a passionate, monogamous-coded romance that immediately upset the delicate balance of the family. While the other wives had built the family's foundation over 16 years of shared struggle, Robyn was given a privileged position from day one. The move to Flagstaff in 2018 was the true beginning of the end. Kody presented the move as a necessity, a way to escape the bad juju of Las Vegas and find their forever home on a stunning piece of property they called Coyote Pass. But the financial pressure was immediate and immense. They went from 4 affordable homes they owned in Vegas to a chaotic mess of expensive rentals and mortgages on a piece of land they couldn't even build on. Suddenly, a new narrative began to emerge from Kody and Robyn, a narrative that would become their shield and their weapon for years to come. The narrative of scarcity. Kody: "We are drowning financially. I'm not kidding. We have all these properties, these rentals. We are hemorrhaging money. The family is broke." The family was broke. Remember that phrase. It was repeated over and over again, both on and off camera. It was a mantra of desperation designed to justify the increasing financial strain and to guilt the other wives into accepting less and less. Janelle was forced into a tiny apartment, then an RV. Christine's pleas for help were ignored. Mary was emotionally and financially isolated. The family was broke. But were they? Because while Kody and Robyn were pushing this narrative of poverty, they were making a series of highly secretive and legally significant moves behind the scenes. Moves that would ensure that while the family might be broken, Kody and Robyn Brown most certainly would not be. On May 17, 2017, just before the chaos of the Flagstaff move, a new business was quietly registered with the Nevada Secretary of State. It was a limited liability company, an LLC. Its name? Dabsark Entertainment LLC. Now, what is an LLC? Let's bring in a legal expert to explain the significance of this maneuver. Legal experts, an LLC, or limited liability company, is a corporate structure that separates the business's assets and liabilities from the personal assets of its owners, who are called members. It creates what's known as a corporate veil. For a family on a reality show, forming an LLC to receive their network payments is standard practice. It offers tax advantages and legal protection. The crucial question, however, is who are the members of that LLC? That's where the control lies. That's where the money goes. Exactly. So who were the members of Dabsark Entertainment, the corporate entity that would, according to multiple reports and analysis of the family's financial structure, become the primary vessel for their massive TLC income? The name itself is a clue. Dabsark. Dayton, Aurora, Brianna, Solomon, Ariella, Robyn, Kody. There was no M for Mary, no J for Janelle, no C for Christine. There was no mention of the 13 other children who had been the backbone of the show for nearly a decade. Let the weight of that sink in. While publicly preaching the gospel of the family pot, Kody and Robyn had created a private, legal, corporate shield that exclusively benefited themselves and Robyn's children. They had built a secret financial lifeboat while telling the rest of the family the ship wasn't sinking. But this was just the beginning. They didn't stop with Dabsark. Public records show Kody later formed Patriarch Productions LLC, and Robyn, in a move of breathtaking audacity, even created her own personal company, KN&R Holdings LLC, an entity that appeared to have no other purpose than to manage her own assets separately from the family. The conspiracy was no longer just seeds. It was a fully formed, legally fortified plan, and the next step was to execute the heist itself. The rerouting of the money. What comes next is a masterclass in financial misdirection and psychological manipulation that would leave 3 women and 13 children struggling while Kody and Robyn built their million-dollar empire. You're not going to want to miss this. So, the corporate structure was in place. Dabzark was ready, but how exactly did the deception work? How did millions of dollars in family income get funneled into Kody and Robyn's private coffers, while the women who had helped build the brand were left with scraps? The mechanics were, according to our investigation and analysis from financial insiders, devastatingly simple. A payment rerouting scheme executed with calculated precision. For years, the income from TLC was paid to the family as a whole, flowing into the family pot as promised. But with the formation of Dabzark, a corporate shell game allegedly began. Instead of the network paying the Brown family, payments were now directed to be paid to Dabzark Entertainment LLC. To Mary, Janelle, and Christine, this may have been presented as a simple, boring legal formality. A smart way to manage the family's business. But the reality was a seismic shift in power. They no longer had direct access or insight into the family's primary income stream. The money was now controlled by a company whose only members were Kody and Robyn. Kody, the patriarch, held the checkbook, and Robyn, his favored wife, was his only business partner. Almost immediately, the other wives started to feel the squeeze. The money, as Christine would later say, seemed to be drying up. Christine, we're struggling. It's been a struggle. We don't have the funds. I hear that over and over and over again. We don't have the money, Christine. This is where the gaslighting kicked into high gear. Kody and Robyn would perform a constant, exhausting theater of poverty. They would cry about the crushing debt, the cost of the Coyote Pass land, the strain of the rental payments. They created a false narrative of shared struggle, making Mary, Janelle, and Christine feel guilty for even asking for what they needed. Are you hearing this? They allegedly diverted the family's millions into their private company, then turned around and shamed the other wives for the financial crisis this very diversion created. It was psychological warfare disguised as fiscal responsibility. The most heartbreaking and frankly monstrous example of this came to a head with Christine and Kody's daughter, Isabel. For years, Isabel had suffered from a severe case of scoliosis, causing her excruciating pain. Doctors recommended a critical, specialized surgery. The cost? Around $50,000. Christine had to beg. She had to fundraise. She sold her clothes and other items online, desperately trying to scrape together the money for her daughter's life-changing surgery. Kody's response? He resisted. He claimed the family couldn't afford it and pushed for a cheaper, less effective option. Christine, I have to be the one to make sure Isabel gets her surgery. I'm going to do whatever it takes. But it's hard to see her in pain, and we're fighting about money. We were fighting about money, but while Christine was selling LuLaRoe leggings on Facebook to fix her daughter's spine, let's take a look at the money trail leading out of Dabzark. What was Kody and Robyn's household spending money on? While Christine was told the family was broke, Kody and Robyn purchased a sprawling 4,400 square foot home in Flagstaff for nearly $900,000. While Janelle was being pushed into an RV because there were no funds for her to have a house, our investigation, based on reports from on-set sources and the family's own social media, paints a very clear picture of a pattern of lavish spending that benefited only one household. There were designer clothes, expensive jewelry, including Robyn's well-known affinity for pieces from the brand Brighton, high-end electronics for their tender-aged children. Kody, a man who claimed to be financially drowning, was spending a fortune on collectible firearms and sports cars. Sources allege that bank records would show a constant stream of funds going towards luxury items, fine dining, and mortgage payments on a mansion, all while Christine was literally begging for the funds to provide basic medical care for their child. This wasn't just a financial discrepancy, this was a moral catastrophe, and it perfectly aligns with the explosive critiques their own daughter, Mykelti, would later make about the entire system. In a series of paid live streams, Mykelti didn't just criticize her father's actions, she attacked the very foundation of the institution that enabled him. Polygamy makes men lazy. Mykelti Padron. Mykelti and her husband Tony have been unequivocal, stating they are to the core anti-polygamy, calling it a terrible way of life. And Mykelti's core assertion is that the system is designed to create lazy, useless men. Men like Kody, who believe their only job is to work a main job and then run around like chickens with their heads cut off, with no real responsibility to be present for their wives or to actually raise their children. In this broken system, the women are expected to do everything: the yard work, the home maintenance, the cooking, the cleaning, and the entirety of the child rearing. Kody saw his children as numbers, a way to expand his kingdom in the afterlife, not as individuals who required his time, his presence, or apparently his financial support for their critical medical needs. And what about the sister wives? Weren't they supposed to help each other? Robyn has spent years cultivating an image of herself as the ultimate team player, the good sister wife who was always there for the kids. Well, Mykelti called BS on that too. She recounted a specific incident when Christine was on a cruise, a rare, much-needed vacation she had paid for herself. She had arranged for Kody and Robyn to watch her younger daughters, Truly, Gwendolyn, and Isabel. It was a simple request, but they didn't do it. They allegedly refused, forcing Mykelti, who lived out of town, to drive all the way back home to babysit her own sisters because her father and his fourth wife couldn't be bothered. Let's contrast that. When Robyn needed help with her own children, what happened? Kody hired a nanny, a full-time paid nanny. Why? Because, as Kody himself admitted, he wanted Robyn all to himself. He didn't want to be bothered with childcare. So let's recap the mechanics of this deception. Step 1, reroute the family's millions into a private LLC. Step 2, gaslight the other wives into believing the family is destitute. Step 3, deny your child essential medical funding while secretly living a life of luxury. Step 4, refuse to provide even the most basic support, like babysitting, while simultaneously hiring paid help for your own household. Mykelti's conclusion is brutal and direct. Robyn was inherently selfish. She never wanted to be in a plural family, and she did not pitch in to help with the kids. She was not a sister wife. She was a saboteur. The evidence was mounting. The emotional toll was becoming unbearable. And somewhere, in the quiet moments between filming, a single loose thread was about to be pulled, and the entire rotten tapestry was about to unravel. Grand conspiracies rarely collapse in a single explosive moment. They die a death of 1,000 cuts. They unravel thread by thread, pulled by the quiet suspicions of those who have been wronged. For Christine and Janelle, the unraveling wasn't an event. It was a slow, painful awakening. The first loose thread was the constant, gnawing feeling of inequality. It was the why. Why was Robyn in a $1 million house while Janelle was in an RV? Why did Kody have time for Robyn's kids' activities but couldn't be bothered to travel for Isabel's life-altering surgery? Why was money always available for Robyn's wishes, but the vault was sealed shut for everyone else? For Christine, the woman with incredible business savvy who had been a top seller for LuLaRoe, the numbers just didn't add up. She knew how much money the show generated. She knew how much she was personally bringing in through her side businesses. Yet the family pot was perpetually empty for her. A name might have stuck in her head, Dapsark. A piece of mail might have been accidentally delivered to the wrong house. A stray comment from a producer. We may never know the exact aha moment, but the digging began. The turning point, according to insiders and pieced together from their own on-screen admissions, was when the victims began to talk to each other. For years, Kody's strategy was divide and conquer. He kept the wives separate, feeding them different narratives, ensuring they never compared notes. But the shared trauma of the Flagstaff experiment, and particularly the isolation of the COVID-19 pandemic, ironically brought them closer. Christine and Janelle formed a new alliance, a powerful one. They started talking in secret, away from the prying eyes of Kody and the ever-watchful Robyn. They compared notes on their budgets. They discussed the dismissive and cruel ways Kody had been treating them. They shared their heartbreak over their children being cast aside in favor of Robyn's tender-aged kids. And then came the smoking gun. It wasn't some hidden ledger in a secret safe. It was a matter of public record. A simple search on the Arizona and Nevada state business registries. There it was, in black and white, Dapsark Entertainment, LLC. Members, Kody Brown, Robyn Brown. Can you imagine that moment? The cold, sickening realization that, wait, your suspicions weren't paranoia. The confirmation that the man you had dedicated your entire life to, the man you had borne children for and built a brand with, had created a legal entity with his newest wife to, allegedly, cut you out of the fortune you helped create. The millions of dollars weren't missing. They had been rerouted. This was the point of no return. The betrayal was no longer just emotional, it was financial. It was legal, it was systemic. Christine, Janelle, and even Mary, in her own isolated way, now understood the game. The family pot was a myth. It had been replaced by Kody and Robyn's private treasure chest. The alliance of the wronged was now solidified. They had the knowledge, they had the shared pain, and they had years of repressed anger fueling them. The illusion of the one family was shattered forever. The stage was set for a confrontation that would be more explosive than anything viewers had ever seen. The reckoning was coming, and it would play out for the entire world to see. There would be no formal lawsuit filed in a court of law, no summons served by a grim-faced process server. The legal battle that ensued was not for a judge and jury, but for the soul of the family and in the court of public opinion. The confrontation was a series of brutal, emotionally charged reckonings that played out on national television, where the victims finally confronted their alleged tormentors with the evidence of their betrayal. The first major confrontation was over the nanny. It was a moment that peeled back the hypocrisy of Kody and Robyn's world for all to see. During the height of the pandemic, Kody had instituted a set of draconian rules that effectively banned him from seeing most of his family, especially Janelle and Christine's households. Because their older sons had jobs and social lives, he claimed it was to protect the whole family. But then, Christine discovered a truth that broke her. Kody and Robyn had a full-time nanny, a person who came in and out of their home every single day. Christine: what does the nanny do? I'm so confused. What is the nanny and her husband doing that makes it so they can come over? 'Cause when I'm home, my kids are here. The confrontation that followed was seismic. Christine, armed with the undeniable hypocrisy of the situation, cornered Kody. His defense was weak, pathetic. He stammered, he deflected, he tried to claim the nanny was following the rules, but the mask had slipped. It was never about safety. It was about control. It was about Kody and Robyn creating a private, monogamous world for themselves, using COVID protocols as the excuse. The nanny was for their convenience, while the rest of the family was left to fend for themselves. But the true bombshell, the moment the financial conspiracy was dragged into the light, came during one of Kody and Christine's final agonizing conversations. Christine, finally fed up, was detailing the years of neglect. And then Kody, in a fit of rage, made a slip of the tongue so profound, so revealing, it became the thesis statement for the entire betrayal. He was ranting about the money Christine was getting from the sale of her house in Flagstaff, money that was legally and morally hers. And in his anger, he stopped talking about our money or the family's money. Kody: we can't get the money from the house to pay off the land, the money from your house to pay off our land. Did you catch that? It was no longer a collective. In his mind, it had already been divided. His rage wasn't that of a patriarch losing a wife, it was that of a business partner losing control of an asset. But the most telling moment was off-screen. In a later tell-all, Christine revealed a conversation where Kody's true feelings about the family finances came roaring to the surface. She recounted him screaming that he had worked his ass off to get his money to buy his house, and that she wasn't going to get any of it, from our money to my money. In 2 words, the entire lie of the family pot was exposed by the patriarch himself. The victims were now lawyering up, not with attorneys, but with their own voices. The decision to leave, first by Christine and then by Janelle and Mary, was their lawsuit. It was a legal, financial, and spiritual filing for divorce from a corrupt system. Their motivation was clear, and it was the same one that had fueled them for decades: justice for their children. They were no longer willing to allow their children to be second-class citizens in a family that was supposed to have none. The legal arguments, if they were to be filed in a court, would be damning. Breach of fiduciary duty. Kody, as the patriarch and manager of the family pot, had a sacred duty to act in the best financial interests of all members. Creating a secret LLC and enriching one household at the expense of others is a catastrophic breach of that duty. Fraudulent conveyance. The act of transferring assets, the TLC income, to a third party, Dabsark, to shield it from others who have a rightful claim to it. Unjust enrichment. Kody and Robyn were unjustly enriched by funds that should have been shared with the entire family. Intentional infliction of emotional distress. The years of gaslighting, financial deprivation, and emotional neglect, particularly in the face of a child's medical crisis, constitute monstrous behavior. This wasn't just a family dispute. It was, as one legal analyst put it, a corporate dissolution lawsuit disguised as a reality TV breakup. Kody and Robyn had turned the family into a business, and now the aggrieved shareholders were cashing out. The stage moved from their living rooms to the television studio for the final act, the trial. The tell-all stage became their courtroom, the host, their prosecutor, and the millions of viewers, their jury. The tension was thick enough to cut with a knife. For years, these specials had been exercises in carefully managed PR and softball questions. But now, with the family publicly fractured, the truth began to spill out in a torrent of raw, unfiltered testimony. The plaintiffs, Christine and Janelle, presented their case with a quiet dignity that belied the years of rage simmering beneath the surface. The evidence was their own lived experience, backed up by years of footage that now looked less like a family documentary and more like a record of a crime in progress. Christine's testimony was heartbreaking. She methodically laid out the timeline of her disillusionment, culminating in the ultimate betrayal, Kody's refusal to accompany their daughter Isabel to her major surgery in another state. Christine: he wouldn't go. He said he couldn't because of COVID, but he could have. We could have quarantined. Our daughter needed her dad there, and he wasn't there. He broke her heart, and that was the final straw. That's when I knew I was done. Janelle's testimony was equally powerful. She, the logical, pragmatic one, laid out the financial and emotional starvation she and her children had endured. She spoke of Kody forcing her to choose between him and her adult children during the holidays, a choice no mother should ever have to make. She testified about the promises of building on Coyote Pass, promises that were never kept, leaving her homeless and living in an RV on the very land they all owned, while Kody and Robyn sat in their mansion. Janelle: it came down to a choice between Kody and my kids, and I'm always going to choose my kids. Then came the defense from the perpetrators, Kody and Robyn, and it was, frankly, a masterclass in self-destruction. Their testimony was weak, inconsistent, and riddled with contradictions. Kody raged. He played the victim. He blamed the other wives for his own failures, for not conforming to his patriarchy. He claimed he had been forced to act like a monogamist with Robyn because the other women didn't respect him enough. But it was during the cross-examination, under the pressure of direct questioning, that their credibility was utterly shattered. Kody was confronted with his own words, his hypocrisy laid bare. His claims of wanting a united family were directly contradicted by his actions. And Robyn, her defense was a waterfall of tears and a litany of grievances about being the family scapegoat. She claimed she had always wanted sister wives, that she had done everything she could to support the other women, but her testimony fell apart when confronted with specifics. The nanny, the refusal to help with Christine's kids, the constant demand for Kody's time and resources. And then came the courtroom's version of the smoking gun. It wasn't just Dabsark, it was the revelation, confirmed by public records, of Robyn's own private company, KN&R Holdings, LLC, her personal slush fund. While her family, her supposed sisters, and their children suffered, Robyn was not just a partner in the main LLC, she was systematically enriching herself through her own separate corporate entity, the unmitigated gall. But the most damning testimony wouldn't come from the main players. It would come from the ultimate insider, a key witness who had seen everything from behind the curtain. Mindy Jessup, Robyn's niece, who for years had served as the family's live-in nanny and Robyn's confidant. While Mindy has not spoken out extensively in a public forum, sources close to the production and family insiders have painted a picture of what her testimony would entail, and it is a bombshell. According to these insider reports, Mindy was allegedly witness to the strategic manipulation from day one. She saw the strategy sessions between Kody and Robyn. She was aware of their private nest egg, the money they were setting aside for themselves, separate from the family pot, long before the move to Flagstaff. Most critically, she allegedly witnessed the weaponization of the COVID-19 protocols in real time. She saw that the nanny was allowed in the house not because she followed the rules, but because Robyn wanted the help and Kody wanted Robyn to be happy. This testimony, even as insider reporting, blew the lid off years of manipulation and deceit. It confirmed that the destruction of the Brown family wasn't a tragedy, it was a strategy. A long con executed to perfection, leaving Kody and Robyn as the sole beneficiaries of a once thriving family empire. The jury, the public, had heard enough. The verdict was coming in. The verdict from the court of public opinion was swift, and it was brutal. There was no judge in a black robe, but if there were, their ruling would have been scathing, finding the actions of Kody and Robyn Brown to be deceitful, unconscionable, and driven by a greed that cannibalized their own family. The judgment didn't come in the form of a legal document, but in a series of life-altering consequences. First, the dissolution of the company. Christine, Janelle, and Mary, all in their own time, left Kody. This was the equivalent of a court-ordered dissolution of the family LLC. The assets were being divided. Christine fought for and received her share from the sale of her Flagstaff home, securing her financial independence. Janelle, having funded much of the family's early life and the down payment on Coyote Pass, began the process of financially untangling herself, ensuring her children's inheritance was protected. Second, a forced sale of assets. The dream of Coyote Pass, the four-home kingdom Kody and Robyn envisioned, is dead. The family is now under immense pressure to sell the land, to liquidate the one major asset they all share, just to pay off the debts incurred during their reckless Flagstaff folly. This is financial Armageddon for Kody, a man who staked his entire patriarchal identity on that piece of dirt. Third, the creation of a children's trust, in spirit if not in law. By leaving, Christine and Janelle ensured that their future earnings would go directly to benefiting their own children and grandchildren, not to funding Kody and Robyn's lifestyle. They restored what was lost, securing their children's financial futures away from the black hole of Dabsark. For the perpetrators, the aftermath has been a slow-motion ruin. Kody and Robyn are reportedly in deep financial chaos. They are saddled with the mortgage on their mansion, the massive property taxes on Coyote Pass, and the loss of the income streams previously generated by the other wives' participation in the show and their side businesses. They have become, in the eyes of the public, financially radioactive. Their carefully crafted image is utterly destroyed. They are no longer seen as pioneers of a faith-based lifestyle, but as a greedy, monogamous couple who conned their family. And the victims, their vindication has been glorious to watch. Tears of relief, a silent, powerful statement of solidarity. The truth came out. Christine and Janelle have risen from the ashes of their broken family, vindicated and free. Christine found a true, loving partnership, a life she never dreamed was possible. Janelle has found peace and joy in her independence, surrounded by the love of her fiercely loyal children. They are not just surviving, they are thriving. The future of the show itself hangs in the balance. But one thing is certain. The old Brown family is dead. It was poisoned from within. A new set of alliances has formed, a matriarchy of the wronged, with Christine and Janelle at its center. They took back their lives, and in doing so, they delivered the ultimate verdict on Kody and Robyn's reign of deception. This was never just a story about polygamy, it's a story about trust, about greed, and about the devastating consequences of systemic deception. It's a cautionary tale of how a family, built on a supposed foundation of faith, can be rotted from the inside out when that faith is replaced by a hunger for money and power. We witnessed Kody Brown, the patriarch, devolve from a goofy, loving father into a bitter, angry tyrant, a man who valued control over compassion and money over his own children's well-being. And we witnessed Robyn Brown, the wife who claimed she wanted to build a sisterhood, become its chief architect of destruction, all while crying victim. But more importantly, we witnessed the incredible resilience of Christine and Janelle. These were women who were conditioned to be silent, to be obedient, to keep sweet. For decades, they sacrificed, they gave, and they built. And when they discovered the system was rigged against them, that the pot they had filled for years was being drained into a private vault, they didn't just get angry, they got smart. They found their collective voice and turned a whisper of discontent into a roar of rebellion. They reclaimed their power, they reclaimed their finances, and they reclaimed their futures. The true legacy of Sister Wives will not be Kody Brown's fantasy of a celestial kingdom. It will be the story of the wives who escaped it, who chose their children over a king, and who taught a generation of viewers that it is never too late to walk away from a bad deal, no matter how sacred it claims to be. They burned the pot, and from the ashes, they built their own empires. That's the story they didn't want you to see. But now you do. I am absolutely dying to know what you guys think about all of this. Was this a calculated conspiracy from the start? What was the moment you realized the family pot was a lie? Let me know all of your thoughts, feelings, and theories down in the comments below. I read every single one. Thank you for joining me on this deep dive. And until next time, stay gossiping.